Hey, it's so good to be back. 31 Days of Horror with me, Alex at Trash Film Addict. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my friend I Am the Ice Lord. He's been leaving tons of comments on my recent videos, and I know that he likes vampire movies and he's apparently a Chris Sarandon fan, so I picked a movie tonight which kind of has both of those things. I've got this Tom Holland 80s classic, which I've never seen before, Fright Night. So I just finished watching it, and here are my thoughts and impressions. Fright Night has been on my radar for ages, and I've been putting it off because it looked a tiny bit cheesy, and I'm not always into cheesy movies. There are some cheesy movies which I find a bit too much, like for example the Waxwork movies from Anthony Hickox. Those I find a little bit, they go a bit too far in the wrong kind of cheesy for me. So what about Fright Night? I didn't really know if I liked it or not immediately. I wasn't sure. I liked some of its aspects, such as the visuals. I loved the colors. I loved how they wrangled fog in this movie. I mean, the crew there with the fog machines and how they lit sets and the lights and everything. It gives the movie a proper atmosphere, so I definitely enjoyed that. I was less bowled over by the acting. You know, it's a bunch of teenagers, and there is a Dracula type character moves in next door. So there is this kid, and he's got this mum, and he's got this virginal girlfriend. Fright Night is a movie about a fear of sex. So Fright Night is actually kind of letting go of virginity and embracing your sexuality, which is embodied by Chris Sarandon's vampire character. The beginning of Fright Night was a bit uneven. It felt like a misguided TV movie at times, until Chris Sarandon showed up, which really put things immediately into perspective. You could see that he was like the anchor, which helped put those elements together, and his performance is really good, and his character is the only character in the movie who's confident about what he is sexually, and which is really cool. So all the others automatically gravitate to this new Dracula who's just moved in, and that's quite interesting to see this, because vampire movies are obviously a perfect playground to tackle sexual topics and taboo topics in a very codified way, so that they can be palatable and acceptable by otherwise more straight-laced audiences, and you can smuggle your quirky ideas past the censorship that way. And Fright Night does that very well. I like that aspect a lot. The main actor, I forget his name, the good guy, I really was not sure why he was in the movie. Like, if I could trim his reaction shots from Fright Night, I would have loved it so much more. It's not so much the actor, it's also the character. It's such a bland presence. If you're familiar with Stoker's Dracula, Jonathan Harker is one of the most ungrateful roles one could play, and this is the Jonathan Harker character he's playing, so it's basically disposable, but he's in the movie a lot. And then he's got his friend who's called like Evil, and that friend is this cackling, strange, overacting presence who's also not super charming. All three teenagers, the girl and the two friends, they tend to be a bit overwrought and shouting. It's like they're not comfortable in the role somehow, or are they made to play teenagers in a certain way which doesn't feel organic. So a lot of the time I found that these bunch of supposed protagonists a bit, a bit unconvincing. Then there is Roddy McDowall, so he's this resident Englishman, the vampire hunter. He's wonderful, but sometimes he feels like he's in his own little movie. Like he enjoys playing his part, but maybe the way the story is put together, it sometimes feels like he's not really playing along with the others as much. This may sound like criticism, and perhaps it is, but these are my direct impressions, having just finished watching the film. So my overall assessment of Fright Night is bound to evolve over times, because these are the seeds I'm planting at the moment. So please don't take don't take this like this is my ultimate opinion. There were some great surprises along the way. For example, I saw bits of Jess Franco's Count Dracula with Roddy McDowall standing in for Jack Taylor and on TV. It was like a movie within the movie, and that was wonderful. That was really quite cool to see a Jess Franco movie quoted like that. Then there was a fantastic disco scene. It's one of the best 1980s disco scenes. It's like up there with the tech noir sequence in the first Terminator. Chris Sarandon acting as this sexual magnet there, and basically stealing the protagonist's girl. And it's a wonderful scene. Some of the costumes were really good, and it was also nice to watch this movie now. It's like the real deal from the 1980s, following some of those throwback movies I reviewed earlier this month, such as House of the Devil or Summer of '84, movies like that. So Fright Night is a genuine article from director Tom Holland, who has written one of my preferred Stephen King adaptations, Thinner. He might have even directed that one. I quite like Thinner. It has not got the best reputation, but I enjoy it. This movie, Fright Night, is a little bit too long, and I would have loved to throw away reaction shots from the protagonist, who always kind of goes like some kind of underaged, low-budget Tom Hanks. He kind of goes, "Oh, vampires." So his reaction shots were really, they didn't have to be there as much. Another great surprise about Fright Night is the quality of special effects. Oh my god, at its best it reminded me a lot of American Werewolf in London. And the movie on the whole, in its more successful scenes, when it works well, when it clicks, it reaches those heights of the Landis movie. There are some really good vampire deaths and transformations, and some gooey stuff which really I just don't know, it made me feel so warm inside and happy, because this is the 80s goodness with practical effects which I miss so much. So that was wonderful discovering that, and the whole finale bit was quite good. The movie was a little bit uneven. There were bits of it which were just characters with their mouths full of dialogue, which wasn't leading nowhere. It was like two good guys trying to convince each other not to fear the vampire, where you realize where this is going, but it doesn't go there. So it basically procrastinates a lot, which was the odd thing about the screenplay. I thought it could have been streamlined. Considering this movie is like 106 minutes, it would have been perfect at 92 minutes, I tell you. There is a great closing credits tune. The score was wonderful. There is some great keyboard stuff going on there. I really loved cinematography and score. Those things were really on the money, and they helped me not give up when the movie went a little bit too soap opera in some less fortunate scenes. When Fright Night is really weak, when it's just a sort of cheesiness and bad acting and not always brilliant dialogue, then it reminded me of Lamberto Bava's 1987 movie Graveyard Disturbance, A Night at the Cemetery, which might have taken some cues from Fright Night for all I know, because it had a lot of that self-indulgent 80s smugness where the movie is sometimes a bit too happy to wrap up, to get wrapped up in its own, haha, I'm ironic and cool and all that. So there was a little bit of that, which wasn't brilliant, but some people love it. So I thought, especially the final third of Fright Night was pretty good, where characters stopped trying to get each other to join the vampire hunting party and finally went and confronted the vampires. There was some great stuff there. Some of the stuff at the beginning, especially the character's mom, that was such a boring character. Generally, female characters in this movie, they do not rock. They do not have much to say. They're alright, but definitely nothing original there. Great sets. The vampire's house. It's a beautiful set, and I guess it echoes Hammer Productions a little bit. It's nice to see a residence like this somewhere in the US. Is Fright Night scary? Nope, it is not scary. I don't think it was intended as scary. There are some grotesque moments with makeup which they're cool, but is it a frightening movie? No. If you want to see a scary vampire movie, I would suggest watch Tobe Hooper's excellent TV movie Salem's Lot. Now that's the scariest vampire movie from the US I can think of off the top of my head. Fright Night is more, it's a bit groovy, it's sort of ironic, it's not always funny, but there is some good stuff there. It's very well put together, there is great crew behind this movie. Had I watched this movie as a teenager, when I was a lot more touchy about movies, when my expectations were higher, when I wasn't as corrupted, when I wasn't as hardened in my love of trash movies, I probably would have disliked it and would have said, oh, this was rubbish, because the movie's tone was a little bit all over the place. So it's not like a movie which is all the way through feels consistent. There are moments there which do not gel together, and this can be grating. But now watching this as an adult, I'm much more forgiving, I'd like to think, and I'm sure I'll be revisiting this movie Fright Night, because I saw some great craftsmanship there, and I love Chris Sarandon's character. He's so cool. I wish the teenies, I wish the supposed good guys were a little bit less bland and a little bit less predictable in their actions, in their reactions, in their how they express themselves. That felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. Edgier teenagers can be cool. If you know the movie River's Edge, now there is your young generation which feels a little bit more genuine. They're just as dumb, they're just as superficial, but they feel a bit more real, you know, but that's a different genre, I guess. So I'm pleased I finally get to check this, I'm sure it's an 80s classic, Fright Night. And I'd like to thank I Am the Ice Lord for all his comments, and I'm gonna link to his channel down below. So that was 31 Days of Horror.